Hey guys, just want to share another positive reference point. I'm big on positive reference points, especially when I look back on my journey of self-discovery and discovering myself as not only an artist, but I think actually discovering myself. I think we hear like self-help, we hear self-love, self-care, self-knowledge. We hear all these selves, but never actually go into what the self is. And I think that's what I was trying to figure out from the very beginning. And although it's been a windy road, it's ultimately led me to understand that aspect of myself. But one of the reference points I look back at was my journey with acting, and it was very short. It was very short. I decided one day that I was in like my early 20s, decided that, well, first of all, I graduated. I'll get to that another day. There was some crap that happened in between there. I'll get to that another day, like I said. But I was sending out resumes. I wasn't really getting responses back, and I was just kind of lost. I was working my part-time job on the side and working my portfolio. And I decided, I'm like, look, like, what are some things that I've always wanted to do, or some things that have been suggested to me in the past when I look back? And I remember just looking at, I think about modeling for some reason. That popped up, and I was like, let me see if there's anything out there. I remember I found an ad on Kijiji, or I think it was Kijiji, or was it Craigslist? I can't remember where it was. And I applied to it, or I just like sent my information in. And I actually got a call back, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, cool. I wasn't looking to make a career out of it. I wanted to go in to challenge myself. I went downtown, went to the modeling agency, and I got signed. It was amazing. It was really cool for me because it's like nothing else was really going on aside from my serving/bartending job, but I was making some progress in another aspect of my life. Fast forward a bit, I was able to do some commercials and some photo shoots and stuff like that. And I'm grateful that I had that serving job because I was working there from, I think, the age, I've been in the hospitality industry ever since. It was one of my first jobs, working at a hotel as a bellboy. My mom worked at that hotel, and the owners it was like a family-owned business, and the owners were absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, that was my first job. And I remember even after, I think, my first couple of months, I got like a $4 raise, which was insane at the time. I made so much money back then, but I just blew it all on crap because I didn't have that discipline. I digress. But I'm really grateful for my the time I spent in the hospitality industry and serving and bartending in my early and mid-20s as well. They prepared me for that, being able to be in front of a camera, be in front of people, have to audition. I'd have to drive downtown, which would take like anywhere from 45 minutes, depending on the time of day, anywhere from 45 minutes, right? For a 5-minute audition. And in between, I have to find parking. So there's a risk of getting a $30 ticket, all for a 5-minute audition, just to hear a call back to see whether or not you'd be able to come in the following week for another audition, or if you got that far, to see whether or not you'd be able to take the days off of work in the next couple of weeks to do this gig. It was very chaotic. There wasn't a lot of structure. There's a lot of going back and forth. But one thing I don't think I've ever really spoken about has been my journey with modeling and acting. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I set out to do these things to challenge myself because I never liked, and this is a reoccurring theme, I talk about a lot in these videos, or at least I should be. I never liked the idea of saying that I can't do something because I'm either depressed, or I feel like I'm insecure, or I'm afraid of what other people think. I don't ever want to let those excuses to me. I don't want to ever let those stop me. But one thing I found with acting that was a beneficial thing. That's what I'm saying is a positive reference point. Although I hated it, although it was a positive reference point, it allowed me to be myself. It really allowed me to be myself. And what I mean allowed me to be myself, even though I'm acting as somebody else, it allowed me to be myself to the point where I can become somebody else within myself. So if I felt like, for example, one thing that I liked to do prior to me even getting into acting was to like play music, like listen to songs and albums and pretend to create music videos in my head and really try to hone in on what the artist and the musicians were trying to get across through their lyrics and music. And I allow myself to feel whatever emotions would come through. So I create a music video in my head where like somebody, like I lost love and they're in the hospital bed and they pass, or you're packing up your life and it's just you and your backpack and whatever stuff you have and this dog that you bought for somebody but they dumped you or left you, and now it's just you guys traveling the world. And I'd apply these scenarios of different songs, right? That was one example of one song. Hopefully I could share that with you if I remember. But what allowed me to really understand about myself was the fact that I had an emotional tool chest that was being utilized by the external world, not by myself. When I started to go into some of these roles, and if it required me to be sad or required me to be angry, I'd use whatever situations that made me feel sad or hurt or made me feel angry and use those for the scene. But I think the beautiful thing that I realized was my ability to actually, at the end of it, was to stop. Whenever I hear cut or see a rap or whatever, and then take that mask off and put it in my suitcase or in my tool chest. I wasn't carrying that anger with me. And I think that's part of the thing with the whole understanding of the self. Like I've always been very introspective. And I think what that allowed me to do was to first and foremost understand in that moment when I took the mask off, like, wow, like these emotions that I allowed other people to trigger and all these things I'm reacting to, like I was walking around with that mask for hours after that, weeks, even years at times. But when I'm acting, I can take that emotion, use it for the scene and put it back. And in realizing that I was able to reclaim my power. Because now I don't have to allow certain things to upset me as much as they did in the past. Nor do I have to wear that mask for more than 2 minutes to really feel whatever I'm going through in that time, in that moment. And I think with me being introspective and spending that time to really understand myself and the self, I allowed myself an opportunity to grieve the years I was wearing all of those masks when I forgot to take them off. I didn't even know I could take them off. And then what ended up happening was like the mask, prior to me getting into acting, prior to me understanding that, became me. Where it affected my face, it affected the muscles in my face, my eyebrows, just like my energy, just everything. And I really credit acting to that. And I think acting has been a crucial piece to me, really understanding myself, and especially my emotions. The reason as to why I hated acting is because although I was learning about myself and I was loving that and really embracing it, other people began to relate to just that version of myself. They didn't see Chad anymore. They didn't see me. They saw actor. They saw status. I hope this makes sense. I've never really spoken about this before, but they saw, it's equivalent of them seeing the Instagram picture. They saw the music video and that's what they saw. They saw the actor and that photo shoot. That's what they saw. They didn't see Chad. They didn't see this. They didn't see Chad behind the mask. And quite frankly, Chad behind the mask was something that wasn't even embraced. I had to hide a lot of myself. And that's what ended up happening. I was hiding myself, or I began to hide a bit of myself, and replace it with the validation that I was getting from people seeing me acting and doing all of these other things. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm not trading pieces of myself for validation that's so, what's the word I'm looking for? So meaningless. Like I can't even compare the amount of validation I get from myself from making that connection between my emotional tool chest and the validation I'm getting from somebody else looking at something that I'm doing, thinking that, oh my God, that's so cool. That was a huge disconnect for me. And I think with the arts, a lot of the time we don't really see the art. And I think the art is the ability to go into oneself, whether it's through music, design, any kind of creative act, and to see that that person was able to pull something out of there and create something and bring something into the world. But a lot of time what we see is just the photo. We don't see the dancer. We don't see the, what is it? What's that Anthony DeMello quote? It's like trying to separate the dance from the dancer. And granted, most people aren't going to spend time trying to really look at that, to try to understand it, to be able to separate the dance from the dancer, or the actor from the act, or the musician from the music. I think ultimately what it is really understanding that that is a human being with a self. And the question that I like to ask, that I've been asking for as long as I can remember, especially when I'm listening to music, is where is that coming from? I want to know more of the journey that led to this self and this individual being able to express that. And I think when we think about people in a consumeristic, capitalist mindset, you're just pumping stuff out, we begin to lose the self, and now it just becomes content. And I hate that word. I hate that word so much. And what I'm trying to do with the podcast or the books or even everything Soindifferent is really trying to hone in on what can I do to help cultivate, to help you and help others, help people around me cultivate a relationship with themselves, with their selves, with the self. I will say it is a painful journey, and one that's going to knock you down several times, because now you're going into yourself, and you're going into those hidden parts of yourself that have these protective monsters, like some of the designs I've drawn, like some of these protective things that are protective, but are actually they're monsters set to instill fear in you, to protect you. And I think that's why a lot of people have such a hard time spending time with themselves. It's having to look at that and feel that and think about what was said or what was done, or how I made that person feel, how I made myself feel, or why I did that. And I think allowing myself to the time and the grace to understand myself and my own personal history, and look at those various reference points that continuously happen in my life, or that are like stars on a map, that I'm like, what's that? Why did that happen there? It required that. Hopefully this all made sense. I'm trying to really share, or begin to start to share, more insight into my journey as an artist and how I've gotten to a point now in my life where it's about taking whatever pain hurt, joy, happiness, whatever that I've been able to discover within the crevices of myself, and using that and refining that to create something positive to give back to not only my community, but to the world. My name's Chad. I'm so indifferent, and you'll be hearing from me soon.